Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on your lunch break. Just checking we're all set up. Looks like we are. I'll just wait for people to start to come in before we kick off. Um, so we're also streaming on LinkedIn, and that all seems to be working. So people will be watching us from there as well, which is great. Um, Hi, Andrea. Yeah, please, everybody, feel free to drop a note in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Uh, yeah, absolutely. And is it sunny where you are? We are just saying Phil is who's with us today is in Barcelona and it is raining.
Cats and dogs.
But sunny in Cornwall. Madeline, what's it like in London?
It is relatively sunny, shall we say? Good.
Good. Okay, great. Well, now that everyone's started to join, I will. Lisa, Claudia in Scotland. Sorry. Let's get started. So, thank you everybody for joining us on your lunch break. And it's great to have all of you here. Chances are you have been feeling that maybe you're a little bit restless in your job, or maybe you know you'd like to make a change, but you're not quite sure how, or maybe you're just interested or curious about what could be different for you. So, wherever you're at, or whatever reason you're here, thank you for being here. And hopefully today will be really insightful for you. So I am Hilary. I lead the Escape School here at Escape the City. We've been helping mid-career professionals make really bold shifts into more meaningful work for over 16 years now. And more than 2,500 people have now been through our flagship Career Change Accelerator. And today is a really special session. It's a chance to hear directly from people who've been through the accelerator themselves. And the idea being that really to give you a kind of real behind the scenes look at what career change can really feel like. The highs, the lows, all the bits in between, any turning points. And it's not just about what happens during the 8 weeks that people are on the program, but also what can unfold afterwards. So, for context, applications for the Autumn Career Change Accelerator are closing on the 25th of September. So if you are wondering whether this could be for you, then hopefully today should give you a clearer picture on that. So moving on to today, really excited to be hearing from two alumni with very different journeys, and then open up to your questions. After that, I will then give you a kind of week by week walkthrough of the accelerator so that you can imagine what it's like to take part, and also share any details that you might need to know around kind of applying or what else we've got coming up. So now on to our guests. So first up, we've got the lovely Madeline, who joined the accelerator back in 2020. Hi, Madeline. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Madeline used the accelerator, I'd say, to lean into testing creative projects, which obviously has then eventually led to your career in copywriting. So it'd be really interesting to hear from you how things have kind of unfolded in the last 5 years for you, Madeline. We'll then move on to hear from Phil. Thank you, Phil, for being here. Fresh from
My
our
pleasure.
most recent cohort. You've already stepped into your new chapter, so it's really exciting to hear about how that's going for you, and how that journey feels right now, after 3 months since finishing the accelerator. So, without further ado, Madeline, if that's okay, I'd like to start with you.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful things is seeing what life looked like, I suppose, before the Career Change Accelerator and how that has shifted. So would you be able to take us back about what that looked like for you? How did it feel day to day?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, happily. So I started off working in sort of advertising agencies, so a lot of like project management, marketing management. And just before I joined the accelerator, I was in marketing management. And I guess, yeah, I mean, to use the term, I just felt stuck. So I wasn't really looking forward to, the new week ahead. I was quite anxious and stressed, but equally, I didn't quite know where to go from that, I guess. In my head, there was a lot of, do you apply for similar roles elsewhere? Is that what you want? But equally feeling like I couldn't really do anything else, because I think coming from an advertising agency background, even going in-house, so like client side as a marketing manager, felt difficult until I got a role that was that. But before that, I was often told, but your agency side, so you wouldn't understand in-house. And so that then kind of led to me thinking, well, this is what I've chosen. This is what I have to stick to in some shape or form now.
Yeah, great. And was there a particular moment for you when you thought, something's got to change for me?
Well, weirdly, I mean, it's probably not a coincidence. I got married at the end of 2019. So I think once that was all over, it felt like there was this new beginning, but not really. And then I think that the stresses all came back. So I wasn't looking forward to going back to work. I wasn't really wanting to be there as such. And then, yeah, I think that was just a really anxious time for me. I was like, I can't keep doing this for my health's sake, if nothing else. And I think that kind of changed it, where I said to my husband, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, I think that's something we often see. It's often people, it kind of does coincide with something else that's going on in your life. It's not just because your career and your work and your life are actually obviously very intertwined. And how did Escape the City first kind of land on your radar? What was it that like, this is the thing that I need?
Yeah, so I'd always gotten the newsletters, the emails with jobs and those ideas. So I was sort of aware of it. But it was actually, again, my husband, who said, there is this thing, this course, and you apply for it. And then I remember having a phone call at the office with someone and kind of talking through where I was at and why I would want to do the course. And also just getting an idea, I think similar to what you were doing later on today, what that entails. And on one hand, I was a bit unsure whether I wanted to commit to something that's like a proper course and, would I come out the other end with something worthwhile. But yeah, then just decided to go for it because it just sounded really exciting. And I remember sort of the mention of you can try out different careers. And I think just the curiosity of what that meant kind of drove me over the edge to be like, I want to know what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, often for a lot of people, knowing that it's not actually not having to commit to one thing, knowing that you have this time and space to be able to test those things out and experiment. Do you remember what it felt like to go into that first session? Whether it's to do with people or, what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, it's a bit like the first day of school in a nutshell. We were at this WeWork space near the Shard, basically. And you walk in, and because it's like a shared working space, it wasn't immediately obvious who was there for the course and who was just trying to work. So you walk in and you're a bit shy, and then eventually you kind of figure out that someone else looks as lost as you do. And then just, starting to introduce ourselves. Yeah, it felt really exciting, daunting, but mostly exciting, I'd say.
Yeah, just for context to anyone listening, so the accelerator, we used to run them in person, and then now we run them online. So obviously people from wherever they are can join us. And across the 8 weeks, what part of the program had the biggest impact for you? Was it, I don't know, the structure, the experiments, the community? What really stuck with you?
I think, well, all of the above. But when we started, we talked a lot about more like the psychological side of who am I as a person and what do I enjoy, which on first glance, I don't think you link that to how that's going to help you further down the line, but it's actually really important. So that was a big one for me. And then obviously the sort of experimenting with different careers, because before you start, you can't imagine what that looks like. But then actually when you get into it, you realize that it's possible to do that, or was, for me personally speaking, possible. And it's a bit like when you're in school and you get to like, play at these indoor playgrounds, and you can be like the postie, and then you can do this and you can do that, and you just try things, and it's just super fun to do that. And it kind of really gave me a new perspective on myself, I think.
Yeah, great. I suppose on the flip side, it sometimes it's not all smooth sailing. And what was your kind of hardest wobble or challenge during that time, and how do you feel like the program helped you?
I think the one thing then, when I sort of got to the point where I realized that copywriting was the thing that I really enjoyed and that I wanted to, somehow get into, I think that there's still this fear of who will employ a copywriter that doesn't have like the specific, I've done copywriting for 10 years on the CV, and who is going to go for that. And then there is a part of the course where we talk through how to apply. And it's not just about, use this template for your CV, but it was about thinking about where you apply, what sort of solution can you provide for them. And in my case, that was actually an interesting one, because then I thought about the brands, and I would do like little adverts for them. So I'd look at, what they'd done before, who they were talking to, and then I did like a little poster ad, or I said, oh, you could do a blog about this, and you could do this. And it's worked both times, I will say, for both my copywriter jobs.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because like you say, and I suppose that kind of links back what you're saying, what we cover off at the beginning. It's around kind of the mindset, but it's also, similarly, as you said, we touched on this in the session at the end, but around kind of mindset of when you are actually applying for jobs, who are you thinking about? What are you? So yeah, it sounds like you really took that and ran with it. So that's great. Fast forward to today. What does life look like now for you? And how different, I suppose, to think back to kind of 6-7 years ago, how different does it feel compared to then?
Really different. So I look forward to work most of the time. I mean, we're not, some days are better than others. But yeah, I really look forward to what I do. I enjoy what I do. Coincidentally, I'm about to relocate to Cape Town, which means that I'll probably have to restart a job search. But I think with the course in mind, I'm already thinking about, oh, what else could I do? How could I apply that? Could I do so I'm bilingual, so could I do a translation certification and kind of use that to build on it whilst I'm changing stuff around? And I think it's also, I'm a bit more open to just trying things out. So I'd like to get into translation for books. So the other day I've got a 4-year-old, and there's a book I really like, and it doesn't exist in German. So I just took a couple of pages and I did a sample translation, and I found the person at the publishers who's responsible for translations. And I just sent them the sample. I haven't heard back, but it's fine. It's, just asking doesn't cost anything. Might as well do it.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like that's a really clear way of how you, probably without directly thinking about it, thought about, use those kind of attitudes and skills and things from the accelerator. Because it's a lot about kind of doing and taking action, and not just thinking about these things. So that's great. You had to let us know how you get on.
Yeah, I'll feedback.
Yeah. And then finally, if someone here who's joined us today does currently feel stuck in the way that you once did, what's one first step or mindset shift that you'd encourage them to take?
I think it's sort of two things, but it kind of starts with the same thing. If you're thinking about something, just a Google search might help you, just to see what's out there. You might be interested in something and you feel like, oh, I've got to have a university degree for that. But there might be different ways to do things that you enjoy more, that get you unstuck. And it also, as I said for my previous point, it doesn't cost anything to ask people. in my experiments, in the experiments, we were often asked to contact people that had done something similar or something that we were interested in and just try to get them for a coffee or ask them questions. And I think just relying on that sort of help is really useful. It gets you insights. It might get you a pointer that you didn't think about. So I think just look into it. I mean, the sky is the limit, theoretically speaking and practically speaking, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Madeline. It's really great to connect with you and hear your story and your side of the accelerator. And if anyone who's joining us today has got any questions, Madeline, feel free to drop them in the chat, either on the Zoom or if you're watching on LinkedIn, and I'll check on there as well, and we'll come to those in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Phil, let's come to you now, because obviously you've just finished the accelerator. Can you give us, I suppose, that I guess like fresh perspective, what it feels like more in the middle of this change, this period of change, and taking us to that. So taking us looking back, first of all, what was your life and work like day to day before you joined?
Yes, happy to be here. Nice to meet everyone, and super fresh perspective. When Hillary's face popped up on the screen, I thought, oh, have I done my homework? Then I remembered I've completed the course. I'm all good. So before I joined earlier this year, I was approaching a period of real change in midlife, mid-career. So I've been 20 years in sports PR. I've worked on some very high profile and externally glamorous jobs at the Olympic Games, 6 Olympics, 4 Rugby World Cups. And externally, it all looked fabulous. Internally, it was exhausting. It was too much travel. It was too many hotel rooms. It was too much loneliness, and it was too much in general. So I was approaching life change and wanted that for about 5 years, but hadn't taken action. But then a redundancy opportunity came up at my organization in January, and I went ahead with that in May, which is kind of coincided with doing the Escape the City course. So it was perfect timing for me.
Oh, great. And what was the tipping point where you thought, I can't keep going like this? Was there a specific thing, or was it just something that kind of had built up for you?
There was probably 100 moments and 99 where I didn't take action, but normally in fancy hotel rooms far away from home, being exhausted, being jet lagged, not quite knowing where I am, and knowing that I wanted more stability, more purpose, and more fulfillment. And especially the latter two. I think there's intrinsic value that you can feel in what you do with your career and your time. And then there's the extrinsic factors of salary, reputation, status, which are ego driven. So I really came to the conclusion that I wanted to focus more on the intrinsic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. And how did Escape City come to land on your radar and the program, and what made you decide, yes, I'm in, I'm doing it, this is the thing for me?
Yeah, so I've got a close knit group of old friends in London, and I shared on our WhatsApp group, which is called Married Old Men Plus Phil, that I was
Brilliant.
approaching a period of uncertainty and that I was really looking to make change, but needed support in that. And one of them, who works quite high up at the National Theatre, saw, I think, your advertising online and and said, why don't you check this out? So then I had sort of a call, and I looked into it, did my research, and from all the reviews, and it looked like it was just what the doctor ordered. So that's how it came to me.
Great. And just go, Andrea has just written in the chat, I love that there was probably 100 moments and 99 where I didn't take action, which is, yeah, it's spot on. It completely highlights obviously what you just said, Phil, but that it just takes that one moment for you to take that action and make that move forward.
I wonder, Andrea, what number are you on? Because my advice would be, don't wait till 100.
Good advice. And once you were in the program, what surprised you the most?
I think the shared spirit of, the shared learning, doing it in a group, and how much obviously I took from the course content and from the structured program we went through, but a lot of the aha moments were also from breakout conversations and shared learnings, shared experiences from other group members. So I really like that style of it. I think the biggest thing for me that I took away from it was it's action orientated, it's experimental, it's move forward, it's momentum. And that was reinforced all through the 8 weeks. And for me, I've read all the books, I've listened to all the podcasts, I've done all the research, but I hadn't taken action. So what this 8 week course helped do was orientate towards taking action.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so interesting you take that away from it, Phil, because that's something that for me, I always think, that is because you like exactly as you say, people, I think the human mind is so taken to like planning and thinking and getting it all out, planning it out for the next 6 months. But the reality is, unless you actually take action, unless you actually do anything about it, um, it won't get you anywhere. So actually, it's really interesting that you take that away as well. Was there an experience or an experiment or a conversation or a mindset shift that really moved things forward for you?
Probably two things. I think one was one of the talks from one of your external speakers, Ben Keane, I could really relate to, and I could, you have to see it to believe it. I've been working on the Women's Rugby World Cup this month with the Fiji team, and there's a real focus on young girls. They need to see it to believe it. And with Ben, there was a bit of that for me, and also giving clarity on kind of what my calling is. And I think the work on personal branding exercise, probably because I was already quite developed on where I wanted to go. I think that really starting off with the values, your why and what you stand for, but then turning that into how to market yourself. What's your USP? What's your niche? That was really beneficial to me.
Okay, great. And yeah, it's that kind of difference from the kind of more introspective work that we do at the start through to the quite practical things that you do need to kind of get yourself set up and yeah.
Yeah.
What was the biggest wobble that you had during the 8 weeks? And how did you get through it?
Um, I'd say my always biggest challenge is time. I've always lived life at quite a fast pace and pack as much in as possible, sometimes too much. So I think there were various occasions when I was behind on the homework or um, hadn't quite dedicated the amount of time that I would like to in preparation. But then that group shared learning experience, I was able to fit in with, and that helped you catch up and go along. So I didn't have too many wobbles, but probably time was always my greatest challenge, and that's just a personal thing to me, really.
Mhm. Great. And what's happened for you since, Phil? What does life look like for you now? Only well, three months later.
Yeah, it's been a very exciting 3 months. I've committed because I've taken action and made commitments. So I have finished my 9 to 5 job working for the man, and am now set up as a consultancy in PR and media and have my first 2 clients, which is going great. And the other 50% of my time I'm dedicating to becoming a mental fitness coach. And I will be an ICF accredited coach by the end of the year. I'm doing breathwork facilitation course. I'm taking speech coaching. So there's various elements, strings to the bow, which I'm growing and then working on the branding in the background so that early next year I can launch that service. But it's really a really good piece of advice I got was don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've had 20 years in sports PR and comms and with great networks and contacts. So I'm continuing to keep those warm for 50% of my time whilst I'm developing the new passion and the new sense of purpose with the other 50% of my time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So really exploring that kind of portfolio career.
Well, exactly that. I'm moving to Barcelona.
Uh, and final question for you, Phil. For somebody who's sitting on the fence about joining this autumn, what would you say to them?
I would say be careful with the splinters. We can sit waiting for too long and wishing our life away. I'm 44 and it was definitely time for action. I'd been 5 years thinking about this, and as soon as I took action, I'm attracting things, doors are opening. Really, as soon as you gain momentum and you start taking steps and risks and taking positive action, things can really happen. So perhaps Escape the City is the first step to that, and I highly recommend it. And I would say, yeah, probably the best marketing strapline in my lifetime, simplest, is Nike's just do it. So that would be my message if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for sharing your experience. And yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for early next year and for your kind of the launch of your next venture.
Sure.
And thank you to both of you for joining and sharing your experiences, because it's powerful for me to hear, and I think just hearing people's experiences of something rather than I don't know, a list of things you can gain and that kind of thing. It's so powerful, and it's so much more relatable. So I hope that everybody who's joined us today feels the same.
And Hilary, if it's helpful, I did my first podcast last week, which talks a little bit about career change and some of the challenges of it and some of the excitement of it. So I'll pop it in the link, and if anyone wants to have a
Yeah,
listen or even provide feedback, they're welcome to.
brilliant. Yeah, please do. Thank you, Phil. Um, let's open up the floor now for questions. So feel free to pop them in the chat, or in the Q&A box, or on LinkedIn. We've got one first of all, from Claire for Madeline. You mentioned trying out different careers during the course. Can you explain a little bit more of how you did that and what was involved?
Yeah, definitely. So it's sort of, once I'd worked out that I'd probably want to go down a sort of creative route, it then became a what do you just want to try just for fun of it? Don't think about, how you're going to earn money with it. And for my wedding, I'd done a lot of embroidery for my bridesmaids. So then I thought, oh, that might be something like upcycling clothes, doing that. So then what the sort of task is in the time you have is try to also speak to people who've done that. So there was a big sort of crafty event going on in London at the time. So I went to that. And I spoke to people, manning the different stands, if they were the owners, how they did what they did. I found, places online, like people that I'd worked at, what is it called, Not on a High Street, how they set up their businesses, and kind of did that. And then equally with copywriting, once I got into that, there was alumni who'd had companies that wanted help with copywriting. So we set that up, and I wrote their social posts or blog posts and all these things. So yeah, kind of just fell into place.
Oh, that's good. So you actually, it was also obviously doing the kind of experimental part, of course, but also utilizing the community and the other people that you're on with.
Yes, exactly that. And within my cohort, there was a group of 2 or 3 people who did the sort of wine subscription. And so they then immediately went, well, can you write the web copy? Can you do this interview with this person? And it just kind of just happens to all work together.
Yeah, great. Another question from Cecile. How is the course helping identify what one's new direction could be? I've had the certainty I wanted and needed a change for years, but what's held me back is the lack of clarity about what my next gig could be. Phil, would you be up front on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I can't speak for everyone, but many of us have tendencies towards perfectionism and knowing all the answers. And actually, I think with career change, it's follow the direction, and the way will unfold, the path will unfold. I think there's a clever quote about that, but hopefully you get the gist of it, which is start taking steps towards the direction you want to travel in and the destination. Don't worry about the destination. And for me, I'm going to launch as a mental fitness coach. I couldn't have said that to you even 2 months ago. This is clarity that's come post the course. I knew I was passionate about mental health. I knew my background in sport connects with visualization and practices like that. But it's only over time that I'm sort of honing and defining that. And yeah, so my advice would be to don't worry about having all the answers. They will unfold.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Lost you there at the end, but just right at the end. Yeah, and I suppose I would just add to that in terms of like kind of the kind of maybe more so the nuts and bolts, but also the first couple of weeks we really look at the values, the strengths, and your needs, and really get under the skin of, as Phil says, what those dots might be that you're going to be connecting, and then it's about kind of running these small low risk experiments that are really kind of testing your direction in real life, and that's really key. Is that you're not they have to be with a person, they have to be doing something real, but it will kind of come from that work that we've done at the start that might inform those kind of potential experiments that they might be for you. So the point isn't necessarily to kind of magically know the answer up front, but it's to kind of build that clarity by trying things out and testing them with the kind of support, that framework around you. Question for Phil from Gavin. Have you listened to or read The Chimp Paradox? And if so, how do you recognize the chimp without him taking over? I'm worried Phil might be frozen, actually. Maybe we'll come back to that one. We'll come back to that one from you, Gavin. But from Jasmine, my question would be, is it more important to prioritize staying in your initial career path or passion, even if it's not aligning with your values, or pivot to something different that better reflects your values? Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I don't know, Madeline, would you like to answer to any of that?
Yeah, I think it almost feeds a bit into the question before, that you're trying to know where you're going before you've set off. So I think see where it takes you. Trust the process. Because if you love your current career and maybe it's just you're not in love with this particular role or an aspect of it, there might be a different way to do it, which I think you'll get to once you work your way through it.
Yeah, and I remember you saying to me at the start, Madeline, when I first chatted to you about kind of the idea of in the first couple of sessions saying trust the process, and I think you said you were a bit skeptical.
Very, yeah, really needn't be. I think it does what it's meant to do if you allow it to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there isn't one right answer. And it really depends what matters most to you at this stage. So for some people, staying in their original career path makes sense if you can potentially find a way to realign it with your values, whether that's making small shifts where you are. But for others, it might be around kind of, pivoting into something that feels more meaningful, even if that is quite different to you on paper.
Yeah,
or it looks quite different on paper.
I think we had people come back from previous cohorts that were still at the same company, but they'd shifted into, say, like being a sustainability expert or whatever, because that was closer to the heart than what they did before. And we had people who founded, companies who'd started something completely new. So yeah, I think try it out and see where you land.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Madeline. And thanks for your question, Jasmine. Phil, I think we've got you back.
Yes, yeah. And I did hear your question, but the Wi-Fi went a bit funny. I don't think it likes the rain.
It does. So you all good to answer that?
Yes,
thank you.
Indeed. So great question, Gavin, I think it is. The Professor Steve Peters actually was heavily involved with the British cycling team when I worked for Team GB in London 2012 Olympics. And so many of the cyclists, the likes of Chris Hoy and Victoria Pendleton, put their gold medal success down primarily to his work on sports psychology and the mental preparation for success. So his book, The Chimp Paradox, yes, I've read it, and it's so clear that we have a part of our brain that acts on emotion and does occasionally need taming or controlling or being aware of, to have that more rational, focused decision making. I've actually just completed a course called PQ, which is positive intelligence, which is kind of emotional intelligence plus, which shows that we all have saboteurs, a number of saboteurs, and the saboteurs can be different for each person. Mine is restlessness. Other people's might be people pleasing. But I think the key to all of this, in summary, is self-awareness. The more you know yourself, the better you can make decisions, being aware of what might be holding you back, what might be your fears. And there's a great phrase, isn't there? Feel the fear and do it anyway. I think there was a book with that title. And a lot of career change, there is going to be a sense of uncertainty and a sense of fear, and it's pushing through that and embracing the potential and the opportunity on the other side. And I actually mentioned Stephen Peters in the podcast, so give it a listen.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Thanks for your question, Gavin. Just a couple more questions now before we get to the end of the session. So a question from Saskia. How to navigate career shift when you are already in unemployment and do not have the time to experiment slowly? I suppose unless either of you want to jump in, I don't want to jump in on you. My thought would be, that is a really real situation that people are in, and actually a lot often people do come to us in between roles, which can be freeing, but it also can be really pressurizing at the same time. And actually, when you don't have the luxury of time, the key, I think, is to balance clarity with action. So getting really focused on what matters to you, so that you're not kind of scattering your energy everywhere. And then from there, kind of almost like running targeted, like fast experiments that can move you forward quickly. It's not necessarily about doing something that's going to take you 3 months to figure out whether that might be the right thing for you or not. So the point is very much around kind of like not having that, not planning a perfect situation, because, well, perfect plans often don't exist. But it's also kind of using kind of like fast, low risk experiments. You could pigeonhole that 8 weeks to do that, to move you forward, rather than kind of sitting in the pressure of needing to get it right immediately.
Yeah, if I may just add to that as well. So I resigned from my role in March of 2020, a week before lockdown, during the course. And there was a bit of like, well, I do need to get, something. And I took on another project management role for, I think it was a month, and then I got my first copywriter offer. So yeah, there is that, you can create that space for yourself with something that might not be the big one, but just to keep you afloat and keep the stresses out of the process.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Madeline. And then final question from Emily. It's great to hear about these case studies and how the course has impacted so positively. Is there any data about how many participants across the programs successfully find new directions and career change post-program? Really good question. And I really understand the need for kind of hard evidence as well as stories. Obviously, the truth is that career change doesn't necessarily always follow that like neat timeline, because for some people it will happen straight away. For some people, they're still kind of it might take longer because of personal circumstances or the type of change that they're making. What I will say though is that we see 100% of participants definitely leave with greater clarity and confidence and momentum than when they arrived. And probably about 75% go on to make a tangible career shift. Whether that again, that looks completely different for everybody, but whether that's moving into a new role, whether it's starting a business, whether it's building a portfolio career, those changes can be big or small dependent on each person, and often within 6 to 12 months. And even for those that kind of it might take longer, obviously the tools and community, and I think is there indefinitely. You always have all of the resources to come back to, and often people will say to me, "Oh, I've revisited that," and kind of keeping that progress going long after the program ends. Great. Well, I think that's all that we have got time for in terms of questions. I'm going to just I don't want to keep everyone too much longer, because I can imagine you've got an hour, you want to go and get your lunch, but I will just finish off by giving you a bit of a kind of a behind the scenes walkthrough, I suppose, just to kind of tell you what the accelerator actually looks like week by week. So for the first couple of weeks, we are, it's all around kind of headspace and reflection. So you kind of stepping back from autopilot, you're getting clear on your values, your strengths, your needs. And many people often say that this is the first time that they properly asked, what is it that actually matters to me? What do I want? Rather than, just kind of carrying on that cycle that you might have been going, whether that's from job to job or staying in the same job. So that's really kind of digging down into the kind of introspective needs of yourself. In the third and fourth week, we're focusing on exploration and possibilities. So we're mapping out new directions, exploring opportunities, and starting to design those low risk experiments and tests that we've all talked about. Week 5 and 6, we are really kind of going into the experimenting and building that momentum. So it's very much around kind of stopping any overthinking, but starting to really test those ideas in real life. And this is, again, probably a turning point where people say, okay, yeah, I can see that there's where this is going a little bit, even if they don't know the exact direction, but it gives them that kind of like momentum and energy. And we often really feel that as a group. And then in week 7 and 8, we focus very much on kind of making sure that clarity is really kind of set for people, and that the next steps are also set up. So it's putting it all together in a real kind of clear, practical plan, but also making sure you've got those real life kind of skills. I think, well, both Phil and Madeline, you both mentioned, whether it's those about how to put yourself out there, but then also like CV, making sure, even like things down to like the financials, all of those different really practical things that that's the reality, and how you can kind of weave those into where you're going, and also making sure you've got systems and accountability set up yourself so that you do keep moving after the program, and it's not this 8 weeks that is just done and done. So that's kind of the 8 weeks in a nutshell. And then obviously during that time, we also have different speakers, people who've experienced the program themselves, or people who have kind of are really kind of living the kind of ethos of Escape and a program come and talk, because again, hearing from real people and people's stories is so inspiring. And I remember, Madeline, you said that to me about your experience on the program.
Yeah, it was good to hear different sides of it, I think, because we had founders, we had all sorts there, and to see that you can do bigger things or smaller shifts helps.
Yeah, great. And yeah, and essentially the kind of, people you'll come out of it with the clarity, with the confidence, with the momentum, and with the community. And I can't stress how much the community always is for people, both in terms of accountability, but also in terms of knowing that you're not doing it alone, because it can sometimes feel quite isolating when you're trying to make especially a change, and if you've got to that point. So just, I think that's everything for today. Huge thank you, Madeline and Phil, for coming on today. It's been so valuable to kind of hear about, both the long-term ripple effects, but also that immediate momentum of change that you both experienced. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And then just for everybody that's joined us today, thank you very much again for giving it your lunch break and for joining us. So the applications are open until the 25th of September. And also just a little bonus, if you confirm your place before the 18th, which is next Thursday, you'll also get a free one-to-one coaching session, which can kind of really help to kind of embed what it is you're going through. So if you've got any questions, then please do feel free to drop me an email or message me on LinkedIn. And yeah, just thanks everybody so much for being here. Just before I go, I'm just going to share the link for the accelerator in the chat box. So if anybody wants to find out anything more, then all the information is there, along with the apply link and the download the syllabus link as
Hilary,
well.
there's just a question in there about the dates of the first cohort in 2026.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Good job you're here, Phil. We will be running cohorts. So we've got the next one coming up in this autumn, and then 2026. We've got the dates aren't confirmed yet, but it will be spring. So it will probably be February. But obviously, as soon as those dates are confirmed, we'll make sure everyone who's registered their interest will be let know. But yeah, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye all, thanks.